Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody. It's Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here. Let's talk about our potential snow event for Friday. Though most of us are likely going to see rain, there are some areas that will potentially see maybe some significant snow, but I'll show you some of the pitfalls and why getting too excited around Charlotte for snow is probably something not to get too carried away with just yet. Here's a look at today. We'll go through time into tonight and early tomorrow. I'm going to stop this tomorrow afternoon because we could start to see the makings of our system right here. You see the low pressure surface low here, but the upper low is a key part of this. That upper low is actually more important with this system than the surface low. Not that the surface low isn't important, because trust me, the track is, but that upper low is going to supply its own cold air. The supply of cold air is way up here at the surface, so we don't have an ideal location of cold air. So for this system, the reason it's not a home run hit is it's really marginal for cold air. So it has to generate some of its own cold air, and that's going to come from the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, not so much from the surface. So let's go through time. I'll show you the development of this system. I'm going to stop it here late Thursday night. So this is Thursday evening. Let me stop this at 7 p.m. Thursday evening. So here's our low pressure. All of the guidance pretty much in unison with some kind of surface low forming over Florida and then moving up the coast. But what you don't see is an upper low here. And I'm going to turn that on for a second. So let me show you the overlay here. So I'm going to show you the 850 millibar heights, which is up around 5,000 feet. You see there's a low back to the northwest, but let me show you 700, which is roughly around 10 to 12,000 feet. You see the green line here? This is where the upper low is. This is the circle that's cut off. It's actually over northern Alabama and Mississippi, while the surface low is down here. The surface low hugging the coast is good, but this is where the cold air is a lot. So where does this rotate through? And as this strengthens, this air will get colder on the northwest side. So I'm going to turn off the 700 millibar low just for a second. We're going to go through time. Let's go into early Friday morning. So this is 2 a.m. Friday morning. Our surface low is here. Notice this rain snow line is mainly back into the mountains and foothills. And why is that? Let's look at the 700 millibar heights. The upper low is still back to the northwest, so the coldest air is actually back in these areas. And if I put on the 850 millibar temperatures, you see the kind of darker blue? That's roughly where the freezing line is at around 5,000 feet. So that means below 5,000 feet, it's likely above freezing. But if you're in the mountains and you've got some elevation, let's say 3,000 feet, you're only a couple thousand feet away from that freezing line. So much higher probability of seeing snow back here to the northwest, while Charlotte, it's a little bit wishy-washy on exactly where that rain snow line is. So I'm going to leave the 700 millibar green line on, and we're going to go through time. So let's go into early Friday. You see the surface low on the coast. Look at where the upper low is. It's tracking pretty much right over the western Carolinas, but notice the rain snow line is staying pretty far to the north. So this is 7 a.m. on Friday. Whoops, let me back that up. Go all the way back to 7 a.m. That was too quick. So here's 7 a.m. Let's go to about noon. This is where we get the closest approach of the rain snow line. But look where the cold air is. It's pretty much bottled up right in here, and it's just too warm. Now, if this thing were to crank up on the coast more and maybe tug to the southeast, it could pull the rain snow line down. But it's such a close call now. I know somebody in this area up in here is going to get a burst of real heavy snow on Friday. The question is, where does that set up? The good news in all this is not an ice setup. Very little sleet probability in this. It's either rain or wet snow. And even where it's snowing, the temperatures, even back in here, are barely going to be in the mid to lower 30s. So it's going to be one of those wet, heavy snows that likely will be melting very quickly on the way down. As we go into the afternoon hours on Friday, this is about 1 p.m. Notice the upper low is now over Raleigh. It's starting to already move out. So this is a situation where the coldest air starts moving into our region at the same time the moisture starts to move out. We go into Friday evening, the low moves away, and by the time the really cold air moves in on the backside of this, the low is already gone. So it is a really marginal event overall, and you're just not looking at huge amounts of cold air for this to work with. So if you look at the snow forecast, it's just kind of hit or miss. And again, the GFS and European are very similar in their way of thinking on this. So right now, this is kind of my thinking for where I think the highest chance of snow is. If you look at this, you'll see that the highest probabilities are generally going to be along and north of I-85. Now, could we see this line shift to the south? Certainly, that is a distinct possibility. I think we could see the line maybe shift a little bit further down to the south. I think that is definitely a possibility. But right now, it just doesn't look like we're going to see a ton of snow in here unless it's a quick burst at the end and this line shifts to the south. The highlighted areas, the mountains for sure, probably going to see winter storm warnings or watches issued in the next 12 to 24 hours for these areas. And then along Interstate 40 north. And let me show you a couple things I like to look at that are really useful. Instead of showing you one single model output with a snow amount, I'm going to show you a model blender, which takes all of the models and blends them together. And honestly, this in ensembles is the way you should be doing this. If you're seeing a single model run like, oh my gosh, the NAM or GFS or this model dumps on us, just discount that. That is an outlier. What we need to really look at is the blend of all of them and then use some human forecasting techniques. So this is what we call the blend of models. And if you look at the forecast snowfall, this is through 7 a.m. on Friday. I'm going to stop this on Saturday morning at about 7 a.m. So we'll stop this at 7 a.m. If you look carefully, the mountains absolutely get clobbered. Some of these areas are up around 8-9 inches of snow. Hickory checks in with about 1.2, but around Charlotte, 0. Now, it doesn't mean it won't snow, just means there's no accumulation. Raleigh, maybe a half an inch. Greensboro, a half an inch to an inch. But look where the orientation of all this is setting up. I think this is really key to kind of where the snow is going to be. I think it's going to be in the mountains, adjacent foothills, northwest Piedmont, maybe in this area right in here. So I think that's the general area that I would be looking for. Now, if we're going to see snow further south, if you're down here going, man, I want to see some snow, at the very tail end, there could be what we call a deformation zone. As the low cranks up, there's this band of heavy snow that forms on the northwest side. It's oriented usually southwest to northeast. That could be a quick burst. So we could see one of those scenarios again, and it was somewhat depicted here in the guidance that at the very tail end, if we see this band, and this is probably what you're looking at right here, right in here, this band could be a quick, heavy burst of big, fat, wet snowflakes that come down at the tail end. But it's still one of those tough things. It's like forecasting exactly where the pop-up thunderstorm is going to be. You know there's going to be one somewhere, but saying it's going to be over your house is virtually impossible. So we'll keep an eye on it. I mean, I would love to see a better setup here. And for those asking, next week is still looking much more favorable, honestly, than this week. Because when this system moves through, and let's see, we'll go, and I'll give you a sneak peek because we'll have time to watch this. The next system forms deeper south. So what happens in this setup is that the low is down here over Texas. Look where it is. It's forming way down here. And we've got much colder air in places this tracks to the south. So while there isn't anything definitive or good details with this, the pattern next week is even more favorable for snow because it's less marginal with the cold air. And the low track is much more ideal as well. The system this week is really relying on an upper low to give us the snow, whereas next week it's relying more on the traditional ways that we get snow in the southeast. So there are things to be excited about as a snow lover. The pattern is looking favorable, but right now, I think these are the areas. If I'm looking for an area of snow, let me get this out of the way here. I would be looking for these areas along and north of I-40, at least right now. Of course, I'll have updates throughout the next couple of days, and we'll do updates obviously every day through the weekend.